Alright. Get ready. Here we go. Hello, guys, and welcome to another replay analysis video with me, ViBE. And today we're going over Akila's games, or better known as Phalanx. And we're going to be going over his Masters level ZvP game right here. If you guys don't know how these work, replay analysis is where somebody from my stream will post a replay of a game they played, and I will watch it and basically analyze what I think they do good and bad all throughout the game, or what I think that they do well and poorly, if I want to have proper English, and give them ideas on things that I think they're not doing very good, that things they're not doing correctly, give them ideas on how to change that and make it work better for them. Alright. So we got 17 hatch. If you ever find yourself getting blocked by a probe, one way you can get around that kind of a situation is just simply taking a 16 hatch. We actually just talked about this in my stream like recently. But if this probe ever blocks you, consider doing a 16 hatch instead of a 17 hatch. 17 hatch is totally fine as long as you don't get blocked, but it is late enough to be blocked if the Protoss does want to do that to you. So we have a 17 hatch with a what looked like a 17 followed up by like a 16-15 or a 17-15. It's basically hatch pool gas. It's fine build. It's standard. It's safe. It's actually very safe because you are getting a speed early, but it's standard. And we'll be going up to 19 drones here with an Overlord. So yeah, I also do like the Overlord placement here so far. The probe just ran back into the main, and he knows that. It's questionable. It's like, what are you doing in my main? But he's just scouting around, so it's fine. Most likely not building stuff over here, but you should always still just, you know, maybe with like a Zergling or something or a drone. Just, yeah, I like that he's checking. You never know. It could be some weird shit, like a gateway proxy that he just randomly decided to throw down and see if he would scout it. It could be silly. Or cannons. Excuse me. But yeah, standard so far. Now, 3 drones are being pulled off gas as soon as speed's done. That's okay. That's fine. I would love to see this Overlord go in further. I like that it's not stopping. Right now, this is important to know. So the gateway is being chronoed, which is a big tell, and that, you know, terms that either this Protoss wants to deny this Overlord really fast, or he wants to get an adept at your base really fast. So I gotta turn down the Kerrigan over here. He's going to want to do something fast at the gateway. So it's, you know, it's important to know that he's chronoing that. Most of the time, it is going to be for Protoss making an adept, which is exactly what he did. It's because he wants to get over to your base as quick as possible and harass your drones. And now you see a Stargate. So this is the perfect reason why I say it's so important to scout with the Overlord. Even if it's going to die, if this was a Stalker, this Overlord would be dead. But knowing this, that he went for a Stargate, is so much more important than the Overlord potentially surviving. Because the fact that it is a Stargate now, even if the Overlord was sitting here, it's still going to die eventually. Maybe like 1 minute from now. And but then you might have already wasted more resources by doing something else, like making way too much gas way too early, or you know, making things you don't necessarily need. Because right now that you know it's a Stargate, you can totally go, okay, well, he's probably just going to make an Oracle, or a Phoenix, or both. It's almost always both, but you just don't know if it's going to be a Phoenix first or an Oracle first. But there's going to be some type of a Stargate pressure followed up by either a third base or maybe like a timing. It could be either. The one thing I would say I would love to see you do, though, is I would actually love to see you keep the Overlord here, because, again, this Overlord is not going home. It's going to die. If he makes a Phoenix, your Overlord is dead. And every Protoss makes a Phoenix. So what I actually would love to see you do in the future, because this Overlord is guaranteed going to die, is just leave it here on the Stargate, and you can see what he makes first. If he makes a Spore Crawler, or sorry, if he makes an Oracle first, you need to prioritize making Spore Crawlers a little sooner. If he makes a Phoenix first, you can delay Spores until once the Overlord starts getting shot at by the Phoenix. You can even leave it on hold position and just look at the Stargate, just glance at it and go, okay, Like, are you making an Oracle right away as soon as the Phoenix is done, or is there Stargate doing nothing? And the longer that he does not make an Oracle for, the more drones you can literally just squeeze out. And it's a big deal because if you are going to take a gas eventually, which you're going to retake gas soon, if you're mining gas and you make spores really fast, you are going to have a bunch of larvae that you cannot spin. So if you delay, the longer you delay spores, the faster you can spin your larva, and the more it'll ramp up your economy in general. So it's a big deal knowing what he's doing with that. You want to just delay the spores as long as possible, because the last thing you want is to build spores and then have like 80 seconds of time where you have spores done, but a Phoenix or an Oracle is still not at your base yet because you made something else first. That's not what you want. It just hurts your own economy then if you do that. And then if you actually get to a point as well where you know, you get rid of the adept and you see what he's doing now. At this phase of the game, I would love to see you send, just especially since you have speed, I would love to see you send a Zergling at his potential third bases. And the scary thing is, like right now, if this guy actually was making Oracle and he was chrono boosting it right away, the Oracle would actually be done by now, and it would be flying across the map right now, and you haven't started spores yet. So not knowing that is a big deal. There's an Oracle right there, I think. I think it just flew by. And it might show up when you have no spores. And if he goes to your main, you could totally lose like 5 drones. So he went to your natural, luckily, which was 2 queens at it. Seriously, if he would have went to your main, I guarantee you would have lost at least 5 drones. So watching the Stargate is huge. It's very important. And now you see he has no third, and he's also taking... this is a building right here. I believe that's another gateway. Or it's a robo. Okay, it's fine. You probably saw that. I just didn't notice. I didn't see it from your perspective when you scouted it. But now you know it's a robo, and you see 4 more gates going up with a Templar Archives. This tells you he's probably going to do something like Archon drop you. So since you opened up with speed, but you also made a Roach Warren, which is nice. I would say the best thing you could do, or actually, you know what? I mean, you have a Roach Warren, so it's fine. I would say the best thing you could do is probably just start a layer first with your first bit of gas, and then maybe make like 6 roaches or something, like 6 to 8 roaches, and then stop after that. I would not recommend making a ton of lings, just because Archon drops can get really silly against lings really early. And it's not really going to be, this is not going to be an all-in as of yet, because we still only have, it's only at 4 minutes 30 seconds, and this dude's tech is delayed because he has gone for a Stargate as an opener, and then he switched into a Templar, Council into Templar Archives and a Robo. This timing is all going to be later now because of the Stargate, and he's only got 4 gates, as far as you know. But which is why I would say I would make like 6 to 8 roaches right now. But and then I would go back to droning. But then around 5 minutes to like 5 minutes 10 seconds, if there is not even an attempt at taking a third base, if these lings just sit here the whole time, and they never get killed or they never get attacked, I would then around 5 minutes 10 seconds go, okay, well I have like 8 roaches and maybe like 3 queens or something to defend the first prism of 2 archons. But he's not taking a third base, so I'm going to now assume that he's going to probably be doing something like throwing even more gates down, and I'm going to start making more roaches, and now you can also make more lings or whatever the hell you want. Just make more units. Roaches are great, in my opinion. I think roaches are better than lings at dealing with a situation like this, because they really hold against archons really well. But just keep that in mind. If around 5 minutes comes by, that's when you would be like, he better be taking a third now, or this could be more gates and an all-in. So you're delaying the layer a bit, which is, it's okay. You're making roaches. Or there's the layer. Okay, it's not a big deal. It's very little time, the difference. But I like that you made some roaches. It's important, especially against the kind of composition you're up against. And now he also killed. He killed a Zergling, and he's also built a pylon. At this point in the game, I would love it if you took this Ling and ran it up to scout and just make sure he's building a Nexus. Because just because he builds a pylon here does not guarantee he's building a Nexus. There are some Protoss that will mess with your mind this way, and they'll be like, I'll just build like 4 more gates here. And then I'm going to build a pylon as I kill your Ling, so you're going to think I'm expanding. And if you make drones, you die. Because I am actually going to do like a 7-gate all-in or something like that. So reconfirming that there is a Nexus here is very important. So you should totally do that. But now that he is taking this base here, it gives you, if it is going to be that, if that is what it's going to be, it gives you time to where if you have like 8 roaches and a couple of queens that can push a prism away, it gives you time to be able to saturate your third. Because he is investing into a third, you could then saturate your third with your units you already have. You could be fine and defend it. Because it would then truly be 4-gate pressure at first. Yeah, I would love to see you droning now, because you have plenty of units to deny this. And you reconfirmed that it is a third, so that's good. So now that you reconfirmed that it is a third, you can drone your third, and you should take a 4th base. Guaranteed, like 100%, you should be taking a 4th base as soon as you can here. And then going from here, this is when you have to really make your choice on what tech you want. If it's going to be like a lot of roaches, hydras in here, roach hydra. Maybe it's going to be like roach hydra ling into ling hydra lurker or whatever, roach hydra into ling hydra bane. There's a lot of choices you can make here, but this is when you're going to have to choose your tech choice. And your tech choice changes a lot of how the game's going to operate. We'll see how you go, I guess. You pushed it back. Nicely done. You're getting roach speed and range weapons. And a second Evo chamber. Okay. Oh. I'm assuming this is going to be like melee upgrades. I hope it's not Carapace. It's melee. Okay, that's fine. So you're going... Well, then you're also getting Hydra. It looks like you're going Roach into Roach Hydra into Ling Hydra, which is totally fine. One thing I'll recommend is if you scout a Protoss player who does this, where they go, they're going for 4-gate, and it's like going to be an Archon drop, basically. When you start making your roaches, make like an extra 2 queens or so that are going to literally just be queens that go fight the prism. And whatever base he commits to fighting you at, grab the queen that injects at that base, so you have like 3 queens there all the time, and just attack the prism. It'll make it much easier for you to just get rid of it and push it away from your base faster. And and then if you stutter step forward while attacking the prism, you might even kill the prism. And if you kill the prism, there's so much pressure that gets removed from you. And your build is a very mineral heavy build because you go for a speedling expand, which means you're going for basically just speed, and then you're going gasless all the way until you have like 30 plus drones. So you can totally afford a couple more queens with that kind of a build if you know you're going to play against a prism. And it would help a lot at just, like, not having things happen where it's like he flies in and kills a couple drones here and there, because it would also give you more creep spread. I think having a few extra queens when you open speedling is great. When you open up with roaches, it's not necessarily required. But when you open up with speedlings, it's great, I think, because you don't have as many roaches as you would with a gasless build. Alright, so now you're going into a hive. And there are only a couple things you would want to ever rush a hive for this fast. This is a really fast hive. The only reason why you would ever want to rush a hive this fast is if you wanted to go for something like similar to what I do, which is go for Broodlords really fast against Protoss, which I honestly think works great. But if you go for a hive, you got to keep in mind, you need to, the second you start a hive, you need to start Aspire, if that's what your plan is. Or if your plan is to go for like, let's say, Hive Tech Lurkers with the burrow speed upgrade, you need to do the same thing. You need to start a Lurker Den as soon as you start a Hive. Basically, whatever tech you want to go for at Hive, you need to start the layer version of it as you start the Hive. Because if you just go Hive and you're going to stay on Ling Hydra, it's not necessary. It's not worth it to rush the Hive this fast. Because it's not going to do anything for you. I guess the only thing it could do is give you adrenal glands on your Lings, which is not bad. But I would assume it's going to be something beyond Ling Hydra. So just keep that in mind. Whatever tech it is, yeah, it's a Spire. It's not that late. Your Spire is your Hive is 29 seconds in and your Spire is 7 seconds in. So your Spire is 22 seconds late. But just keep that in mind. Both of them take the exact same amount of time to do. So if you start them at the exact same time, the second the Hive finishes is the exact time you can start a Greater Spire. And every second counts when you're playing against Protoss because when you go for a quick Broodlord build like this, it's all about keeping the Protoss busy until they can't deal with Broodlords. Because a lot of Protosses will put themselves in this position where they're like, I got tons of Archons, Charge Lots, Immortals, and like 8 Templar with Storm. And then you just walk in with like 12 Broodlords and they're like, oh shit, I can't actually stop that army. So every second counts. It's really important. I like that the second the Spire was done, you started it immediately. But yeah, every second's super important. And if you want to get even more technical with it, generally speaking, as soon as the Greater Spire is started, is when you would want to start. You would want to stop all production of gas on units other than Corruptor. But a Corruptor itself takes 29 seconds to build, and a Greater Spire itself takes another 71 seconds to build. So if you start Corruptors around like halfway to when the Spire's through its production, your Corruptors will be spawning and grouping up like somewhat in your base. Like you could build them and they could all group up here. The second they get there, you can start into Broodlords. So keep that in mind. If you want to start, if you want to have it timed perfectly with building Corruptors into then Broodlords, halfway through the Greater Spire is when you should start your Corruptor. And it's stuff like this where it's like the timing is so critical. Where if you had 22 seconds longer, if 22 seconds faster on the Spire, you would actually be at 55 instead of out of 71 instead of 33. And that would mean you're actually pretty close here really soon to being done and having a Greater Spire done. And it would also mean your Corruptors would probably have been built a little bit sooner, possibly. And you might have the Corruptors that can come up here and snipe the Prism and then become Broodlord. Either way, it's fine. But at this point in the game, there's kind of like two ways to go into Broodlords. Okay, just know that what you're doing right now is what I do a lot, but it is kind of risky. And here's why. You skipped Banelings, and you skipped Lurkers, which means you have no way to brute force this army down. This is the more important thing I'm going to talk about. The whole Broodlord and Spire thing, it's important, but not as important as what I'm talking about now. Okay, so keep that in mind. Your build here has no AoE. You have no Baneling, you have no Lurker. So there's no way you can ram his army and expect to win. The way your army works now is you have to meticulously micro against Storm. You have to, every single time you engage him, you have to pre-spread your army and pre-pull back bits and pieces of your army. Because if you don't, you will eat Storms. And if you eat just like 2 Storms on the bulk of your army, just 2, you've lost. Because if like one Storm hits the center here, and then another Storm hits like on another hefty clump of your army, you're going to lose too much to where you won't be able to stop just the Immortal Archon Charge Lot anymore. And this guy has so many fucking Templar that you're going to have to dodge a lot of Storms. But the good thing for you, though, is if this guy has this many Templar, he only has a couple Archon, and he only has a couple of Immortal. And just a very small... Like, the more Templar he has, the less of everything else he has. He's got to, trade something for something. So what this means is, if you spread really well here, his army, the power of his actual units is going to be so small that you could actually leave like 4 Hydras, or like 2 Hydras, and then 2 more Hydras, and 2 Hydras. And you could have little bits of your army, and you would actually still win the fight. Because if you weather the storms and it's by spreading out so hard that he can't get efficient storms at all, you'll still kill the little remnants of units that he has. It's such a tiny army. But yeah, you should never actually fight this straight up head on. Just putting that out there. Because if you do, you're going to get stormed and you're going to die. I like how you're doing it already so far. You're doing a good job so far. You just need to keep it up. Like, so, as long as you don't eat a storm, things will go well for you. There is one attack, though, that's being kind of uncontested. It's the Prism in your main. It is killing a bunch of drones. You know, if this were to be perfect, I would say the Corruptors should have actually gone up in here and killed the Prism. But there still would have been a Zealot timing out in your base, though. But if the Corruptors killed the Prism and you left, like, let's say 6 Roaches in your main with a Queen, and then you killed it, and then those Roaches then came back down here to help here, that would have been ideally how that would have been defended. Same thing with this side. You would have left, like, maybe... Because you did have creep and you saw it coming. You could have left, like, a little bit of your army here. Just this army he has, this is a bit unusual because he has so many Templar. But it's something you should have looked at, like, from the future you can look at it and be like, okay, well, if he has a ton of Templar, it's 100% going to be based on him landing storms, not really about him overpowering my army and me having to, like, deal with the Zealots and Archons and Immortals while micromanaging against, like, a few storms. All he's doing with this army is trying to be like, yeah, come attack me so I can storm you all day. That's all he wants to do is storm you. So if you spread your army out a bit heavier and, like, defended against the Zealots, you would have been totally fine still fighting against this army with, like, only, like, a half of your actual army or, like, 2/3 of your actual army. Whereas you had, you know, more spread to deal with the Zealots. It is very weird, though. Most Phalanxes don't do it like this. Most Phalanxes are half the Templar, twice the amount of Archons and Immortals. So now you're making Broodlords. You've kind of sustained a lot of damage here. So having Broodlords is going to be nice. But now you're kind of all in. It's just how you handled the attack. Because it's not even entirely over yet. He is still actually coming in here with some more Zealots on the bottom. And that's where you just transferred a bunch of your weak... Oh no, your drones with your main. But he's still coming here from the bottom. Hopefully the Saturate doesn't die. And your main base is very close to dying. And I don't know if you even have vision of that Prism. You do. So you just want to make sure that everything gets cleaned up. The best thing you could do in this position you're in right now, I would say, would be you could counterattack with a little bit of your ground army after you clean up these Zealots. But do not attack with your Broodlords. You need to defend with your Broodlords and rebuild economy as fast. Like, do not build new units now either. Just build drones. And you need to get your drones back up to a healthy number, which is like 70. At least. So it's this is when it comes down to, like, I need to drone my ass off. And if you do counterattack with a bit of your army, don't ever take a fight. If it was like nothing here and you were like, oh wow, I can kill a bunch of probes for free, then sure, that's fine. But if there's any units here, if you were like to counterattack something like this, and he has like any type of army defending, don't even bother. Just run away. Because if you lose any parts of your army and then he comes back and overpowers you with multi-prong, that's how you're going to lose the game again. So droning is the name of the game right now. That's what you need to be doing at this point. Just spam drones. These roaches, no roaches. Every single unit you make now at this point puts you into an all-in. These Broodlords are strong enough to stop this entire army. Other than the Void Ray. Which is where the Queens, or the Hydras come in. You still have Hydras. And also, just keep in mind too, that a lot of Prodosses, it'll be really standard for most Prodosses to go into like carriers or some type of air as soon as they realize, okay, this guy's going Broodlord. It's like the natural order of things is Prodosses will respond to that with more Stargates and a Fleet Beacon. And a lot of times it'll be carriers. The best way, what you should be doing as well is, you know, ideally you didn't want to lose your economy like you did. And if as we talked about earlier, if you just spread out a bit better, you would have actually not lost economy at all, really. But either way, as soon as you have Broodlords, one of the biggest upgrades, there's 2 upgrades you want to get, okay? One is melee. on the ground, because you want to have a mineral dump, and having a level 3 weapon Adrenal Gland Zergling is amazing. Because those units can always get in and counterattack, and if you had like 30 or 40 lings here, you could wipe out this base so fast if like it was ever at any point undefended. If you ever broke into his natural, you could do so much damage to his main and his natural so fast if you got lings in there with level 3 Adrenal. So that's one upgrade that's huge, because again, it is your mineral dump that you'll be doing all the time, because a death ball for Zerg in this situation is expensive as hell with gas. So you're always going to have more minerals left over, which is where they go, is the Zerglings. And the other upgrade that's important is Carapace on your Spire, because it sets you up to deal with Protosses who also transition into Stargate. So you're basically preparing for the late game. You're preparing for his inevitable transition that he'll go for. So Carapace is huge. You need to get Carapace as soon as you can. As soon as you get like whatever corruptors you made into now Broodlords, the next gas you make immediately goes into Carapace. So Carapace is priority, and then after Carapace, then you go back into like level 3 melee Adrenal. If you haven't already started that. So these Broodlords moving out right now is a mistake. This army moving out is okay, but the Broodlords 100% is a mistake, because if this guy does any type of counter pressure to you again right now, you've lost the game. Because there is no way you're ever going to kill his army right now. You shouldn't expect that to happen, because if you do expect that to happen, what you're doing is you're putting yourself into an all-in. And this guy is not on a cheap economy. It's not like he did a 2-base all into you. He 4-base timing attacked you. So he's definitely got the money in the bank to rebuild an army, even though and also not even that, he recalled most of his expensive units out. So this dude's army is not going to be weak at all. It's going to be strong. And you rushing into an attack right now is actually playing to his advantage, because now you're putting yourself in a compromised position where now it gives your opponent 2 options. One is try and just, kill this army with Storm defensively, and maybe even whatever units he has after that. He already has a Stargate, and he already has a lot of Storm. The easiest way Protoss could deal with this is just start making Stargate units like Void Rays or something, and just storm the shit out of the Hydras. And as soon as the Hydras are dead, Void Rays can kill the entire army. Like, just 5 Void Rays could kill this whole army. Or even 1 Void Ray could kill the whole army. It would do it slow. But, a Void Ray could kill everything if just the Hydras died. And if he lands, literally a couple storms, you're just fucked. And the other thing he could do, if he doesn't want to try and, focus heavily on defense, if he wants to just use what he already has, he could actually counterattack you with still, this prism over here. Or if there was still a prism on the map or something, even if it was, over here, he could just fly it over, prism it, phase it in, and kill your main and kill your tech. Kill the Hive, kill the Greater Spire, kill all this shit, kill economy. And that resets you so badly that if this attack doesn't win the game, you are so fucked. So attacking with the Broodlords is definitely a mistake. This army, again, is okay because it can get back and retreat quickly. But if you kept the Broodlords defensively, you could do things like make drones and not put the game in a position where you might just die because he could counter you. As soon as you see the army, you should 100% just run away. Not even try to fight it. But you are committing with the Broodlords, so I understand why you would. But this is a big mistake. If this guy... You see what he did with those zealots a second ago? When he warped in? It was right here. I believe. He warped in 6 zealots. Imagine if this guy... And watch what these zealots do. They do nothing. They just run in and die. Okay, they're dead. They did literally nothing. Can you imagine if that guy made 6 zealots up here instead? And how much damage that would do to you? You have nothing in production. You don't have a lot of money to spend either. And if it forced you at this point to also make units instead of drones, your economy would still remain to be really bad. Your economy is already shot as it is. But if he had zealots in your base, I guarantee he would kill your... since you have nothing in production already as it is, guaranteed your hive dies. It's already low as it is. Your Greater Spire would also probably die. Your Spawning Pool, your Bathing Nest would die. And then if still at that point, if you had nothing there to defend it, because let's say maybe you were too prioritized and focused on this fight, if you just shift a move down here, you might even lose your whole natural mineral line and more tech. Because six Zealots, especially if they have level 2 weapons, they're going to kill the rest of this base pretty fast. So it's scary for you to have it completely exposed like this. So again, Broodlord should be defensive. And I would say if I was like watching you play this game and you actually somehow managed to kill this base, I'd be like, holy shit, you just got really lucky. You need to turn around the second this base dies. Because if you stay longer, you're overstaying your welcome, basically. Like you're just risking the army to die, and if this army dies, you do lose the game. Because you have nothing that'll stop a counter. So this pushing further in is like getting way too greedy. It's already was so greedy as it was, but now this is crazy. But I'm gonna pause it real quick. I understand. I get it. I get the logic behind it. You're like, you feel like you're fucked at this point. You're like, oh man, I just took so much damage, and I'm so far behind. But now I'm doing a lot of counter damage, and he's not ready for it. And now, you know, I'm just like I'm screwing him over. And I would say that if you would have attacked with just the ground army here and not the Broodlords, there's no way you would have killed this base right here. So he would have still been rich. But it's just a big risk. I could go back and do it again. It's a big risk with the whole counterattack potential. And every single second you stay here longer is one more second that's your army is really vulnerable to getting overpowered by a transition from the Protoss. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a transition. If this guy just had like a lot of ground units and he just got a couple good storms off, he would win the fight again that way as well. Because your army is pretty small on relative terms. It's not the biggest. And it's really roach heavy too. Roaches is like the biggest unit you have in this army in terms of supply. And roaches are pretty shit. Yeah, you're kind of just turning the game into an all-in, basically. Because you're not making an economy anymore. You're just making roaches. Because think about it like this: if you know your opponent's got like 4 bases and you would have done what I recommended, where you kept the Broodlords back, you're safe from any type of counterattack. It means you're not having a hole in your build. And if you would have poked him with the Roach Hydra that you already had before from earlier, and you would have been like, oh shit, he's there, I can't attack it, I'll back up. Well, if you would have made a bunch of drones while you did that, you'd be in a position where you still have Broodlord Roach Hydra, but now instead of having like 48 drones, you would probably have like 60 to like 70 drones, and your opponent would still have like 72 or whatever he had before you killed that base. He had something around like 70 in the 70s, I think. You guys would be equal in economy again, and then you could, you know, resume the game from there, being like, okay, well now I got Broodlords defensively, and the game is going to become like a death ball versus a death ball situation, which is where you would want to keep making like Broodlord Corruptor. And you could reinforce your Roach Hydra at that point with more Zergling, with any excess minerals you have once you've saturated, ideally, while you're waiting for more gas. Because what again, what you just did is you compromised your army, and now you have so many roaches in your army that you can't really. It's going to be harder for you to pressure. Like right now, you just lost, like I think like 4 Hydras, and some of them are weakened as well. If these Hydras die, your whole army is just dead. He could actually move forward with 4 carriers and kill this. You have like 2 Hydras are about to die, a couple more are like half health. Only 1 Hydra in this whole army is actually healthy. And the rest is all anti-ground. He recalled the carriers up here. He's being really cautious. Now you're reinforcing with more Hydra. At least you're doing that. This is very all-in, though. Like, the game has become a full all-in. Because you're not investing into economy at all. And it's just harder to get it done when you're the one having to attack his base, because things will happen like your broodlords might shoot extractor or something, or a simulator, or some of your units might get caught up on parts of his base, parts of his sim city. He has cannons he can always fall back to. He has shield batteries he can fall back to here and there at different points of his base. He has defensive flank ability against you with either warping in units here with Pylon, or warping in units up here. He can warp in around your army. And he can always fall back over like terrain back to, you know, his other parts of his base. You still might kill him, but you've made the game a coin flip at this point with how you've decided to go about it after the earlier attack. So like it could work, but it's not always going to work. You'd have a higher odds of winning, I would say, if you did the defensive thing. It would make the game take longer though, but it would be less risky. And now you're in a situation where there's now a mothership, which can tank quite a bit of damage, and you have no anti-air anymore. So now your whole army is going to die. And although this Protoss player has been reset pretty hard, he still has all of his tech. All of his tech is like in his main, so he still has his tech, and he's gonna defend it. And then he still has 2 expansions that are unknown on the map. So if you get really ahead of yourself here and go, I need to kill his main, I need to kill his main, there's a chance you'll bleed out, and then he'll just regain control of multiple bases. Because, like I said before, you didn't really fix your economy that much. So even though your economy is punishing his, you're still not mining a really healthy economy either. So if you're fighting way more inefficiently than he is, he's actually getting he will get ahead eventually. And it sounds weird because you're crushing his fucking supply right now. It's just kind of like closing the game in a way that is smarter. And like killing his nexus that are completely undefended right now is totally, at this point now, from how the game is now, you should 100% kill the nexus. So I hope you go here to kill the nexus right now. Yeah, I feel like you're going into this like Roach Hydra, hit him over the head with a hammer phase. Because right now what you're doing is you're making an army that is actually really... Okay, well, he's dead. You're making an army that's actually really bad, cost efficiently, against Storm and Carrier. If this guy would have gotten to a point where he had like 6 carriers or 8 carriers, and then let's say he still has like 8 Templars or something, every time you fight his army, he's going to annihilate your army so fast. Because your army is so... It's like there are Hydras in it, sure, but it's so roach heavy that like it's, I don't know, it's really scary to like you're investing into really weak tech against the tech he has, but luckily you ended up killing him. There were a lot of holes he could have put, like a lot of ways he could have taken advantage of you if he would have tried to do that instead. But yeah, biggest thing, huge thing, is a little bit of a recap here. Sorry, one sec, I need to take a drink of water. If your opponent attacks you with a high Templar based army and you have skipped Banelings and Lurkers, you have to fight it, and you want to go Broodlords, you have to then fight his army with micro 100%. That's the only way you can win that game, is if you micro against the storms really well, which is totally fine. I do that myself sometimes, but it does require micro to work, and you executed the micro just fine. So I think you're a capable player enough of doing that. So I'm not going to tell you not to do that because you did it well enough. The only thing I would say that you were weak about was I think the Prism was a little bit annoying for you in total. So I think in the future what I would recommend you do is, if you're going to go for a Speedling opening like this and take drones off gas, as soon as you start taking more gas again, as soon as you're like, I'm ready to start mining gas once again, make like a couple extra queens at that point in time, because you are going to have a little bit of excess minerals at that point in time as well. Just make like 2 extra queens and have these queens prioritizing creep spreading around your base. And when the time comes to deal with the Prism, these queens can help push the Prism away. And this way you would have creep all throughout your main. You would have creep, all over your base, maybe a little bit better than what you did. Your creep is not bad at all. But it could be maybe a little bit better if you would make just a couple more queens, because you're going to have more queens to make more creep tubers with. So that's not a bad idea for what you're doing. And then once you go into like your layer tech, where you go Roach, Hydra, into eventually Lings as well, and you get the melee upgrade and the range upgrade and shit like that, I would say if you want to go for Broodlords, get rid of 2 evos, just go to 1 evo. And get level 1 weapons on range weapons. So you'll get Roaches and Hydras level 1 weapon. And stop upgrading Roach Hydra. Stop upgrading range weapons entirely at that point, and use that 1 evo to then switch into melee upgrades. And just get melee upgrades all the way to level 3. And as soon as you hit level 3, then you can go back and finish level 2 and level 3 weapons. Because if you keep making Roach Hydra when you're going to be going into Broodlords, you're actually weakening your overall build, because you don't want to be making Roach Hydra anymore when you have Broodlord. You want to be making Corruptor Broodlord, which is going to take all of your gas. So you want to get out of Roach Hydra as much as possible. I do think the only reason why you did it this game is because you went into this mode of like, I gotta all in now or I'm dead. So just make Roaches and Hydras, because you wanted to kill him now and not let the game go on any longer. And I understand that, but it's risky as fuck to do that. Because like we talked about before, you had holes in your base you could have taken advantage of, and your army of Roach Hydra is so weak to Carrier and Storm. And then, yeah, being defensive with the Broodlords and just going into Corruptor Broodlord is ideally what you'd want to do, while fixing your economy because you made a little bit of a mistake with the defense. And then you go Corruptor Broodlord Zergling, and the Zergling is how you set the Protoss up to kill them. Because the Zergling, if the longer the game goes, the bigger the base gets. And the bigger the base gets, the easier it is to find little gaps in the defense for things like a Zergling pack to get in and kill. So Zerglings are how you set up your attacks, because you either dictate where his army goes, or you kill a base entirely, possibly. So if you dictate where his army goes, you could do something like have Lings pressure. Let's just say this, okay? This is some high-level thinking here, okay? Let's say attacking from here is more advantageous for you than attacking over here. And you want that to happen. So what you could do is you could have your Zerglings attack here first, make his army come over here to defend it, and then move your Corruptor Broodlord into position to fight his army that you want to fight in this location. And while you do that, you then don't lose you don't just throw the Zerglings away, you just set up a fucking fight to make him come here, and as soon as he comes here, you run the Zerglings away, and you swap out with your air army, and then you now, once again, have the Zerglings counterattack somewhere else, and now there's nothing that's going to stop them nearly as much, because now he's really going to be focused on fighting your actual army and the position you want to fight in. Whatever is more advantageous for you, whatever you think is going to work better for you. If you want to set up launch an attack, it could be because, oh shit, you have creep here and you want to put some spore crawlers with your push, or whatever the hell you think is going to work best for you. That's how you set it up. That's a great way to set it up, because the Zerglings are cheaper than Broodlord Corruptor. They're scouts as well, because if you see the enemy, you can get out almost guaranteed without losing your army. Broodlord Corruptor cannot do that. If you just blindly go across the map with Broodlord Corruptor and he's like, oh, there you are, you kind of are just fucked, even if it's a bad place for you to fight, because you're so slow. You're just like, oh, well, I'll try to make the best of the situation. So you can dictate where he goes with that kind of a style. And then, if you take a good fight, you're just going to win the game. Yeah, man, I don't know. That's kind of roughly it. Carapace upgrades are insanely important over weapons, because if you had Carapace upgrades on your Broodlords, they would have actually tanked the carrier shots so much better, because this guy doesn't even have weapon upgrades on his carrier. So if you had, let's say, like level 1 or even maybe like level 2 Carapace, by the time you killed this base, which was like 4 minutes after, or it was actually like 5 minutes after the Spire was done, is when you killed this base, or this base rather. And like it's a lot of time has gone by, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It's enough time to get to level 2 Carapace, and guaranteed by the time you did your first attack over here, you could when your Broodlords came down, you could have had level 1 Carapace. It would make a big difference in how long your Broodlords would last against carriers shooting them. And also, ideally you want to get Corruptor too, and it makes your Corruptors destroy carriers. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of mostly it. I hope. I'm trying to think of anything else I could go over, but I feel like most of what I just said is it. Just know if you want to be safer about it, you can get Broodlords like 1 minute later, or maybe like 90 seconds later, If you do something, since you already get a Baneling Nest, it wouldn't be a bad idea. If you just get Baneling speed, and you get, like, you don't have to make Banelings, by the way, but if your opponent decides he wants to attack you, and you're like, ah, shit, I'm going to have to make a defense now, because he's attacking me, you could make Banes. You could totally make Banes. And it might make your Broodlords delayed by, like, a good minute to maybe minute and a half to 2 minutes. Somewhere in there. Somewhere around that time frame. Because you'll be spending probably, like, 600 gas on Banelings. Which is, like, what you can mine in, like, a minute on 4 bases. So does that make sense? I feel like it would be more... I feel like that would be better for your build because you do actually get a Baneling Nest. And it would be a safer thing for you to do. It doesn't require you to have, like, the most godly micro, because when I do this kind of a build, I actually do the gasless build where I have more roaches than you would in the mid game, because that's just how gasless works. You do not have more roaches than gasless if you open up with speedlings. That's not how it works. So I always have more roaches in the mid game, and then I also make a ton of hydras in the mid game because I like to do pressure. And behind that, I always do once I get to like 180 supply, then I start, or like 170 supply. Then I start making Zerglings because I'm getting ready to go into Broodlords. And if the Protoss attacks me then, I do think that the gasless supply will be a higher supply than this opener, because you mine more minerals faster. So keep that in mind. That's why it's easier. That it would be easier for someone like a guy going gasless to defend a timing without AoE, without Banelings, and without Lurkers, is because you would just actually have more of an army. You would have like 15 to 20 supply more than a guy who goes gas. So yeah, I would say get Bane. If you're going to get Baneling Nest, just get Bane Speed. Just Bane Speed. And make Banes if you have to. If he's going to push you. Otherwise, just get Banes altogether if he's going to be defensive. And yeah, I feel like that's... I feel like that about does it. Thank you guys for watching. That was another replay analysis video I just did there for Aquila, or Phalanx. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. Peace out, guys. Later. Goodbye. Okay. There we go. I don't know. I feel like my outro was rushed there. I was like, what